Hey there, you are listening to yet another episode of Theology on the Road. My name is Steve Schramm. I am your host and your chauffeur for the next few minutes, riding down the road on a very chilly evening here in North Carolina. It is 36 degrees outside. Oh man, it was 65 yesterday. I really just don't know what happened there, but hey, welcome to North Carolina. Gets this time of year, and in the morning it's 30 degrees, and in the evening sometimes it can be 70. You just never know. So it's all up and down. But anyway, I wanted to come to you today with a thought that I had on something that I'm realizing more and more the more time I try to spend in my Bible. We all go through seasons of life where we spend more time than others being really dialed in with the Word. And a lot of times, and those of you out there listening who are fans of theology and apologetics and the kind of things that I'm really into, a lot of times we fall into this trap, don't we, of consuming more content about the Bible than consuming the Bible itself. And, I mean, no doubt, we all could try to sound high and mighty and pious and try to come up with reasons why that might be, that, explain that away or whatever. The reality is sometimes it's just hard to sit down for extended periods of time and read or even listen to the Bible, because you're wanting to do more than just read the words. You're wanting to really deeply understand things that aren't spelled out clearly for you, right? And so a lot of times we're listening to people who teach the Bible or teach about the Bible or teach in defense of the Bible or something like that, rather than the Bible itself. So that's kind of a side point. We should maybe really try to reverse that. We should really try to spend more time in the Word. But we go through these seasons where we do try to spend more time, and we're really making a conscious effort. I'm in one of those right now. I downloaded a new Bible app. I'm sure it's not actually a new Bible app, but it's new to me, and I've been listening through it. I've listened to the book of Joshua so far. I've listened to I just listened to Romans today, and I thought about something that I think is a point that gets missed in the discussions a lot around apologetics, especially. And it's this. It's a really simple point. This shouldn't be a very long episode, because it's just a really simple point that so many of the questions that skeptics ask are actually answered in the biblical text itself. And it's not even just questions that the skeptics ask. It's questions that we ask as Christians, as people who love God and are trying just to understand how to live as a faithful Christian in God's world. We find that things that are difficult for us to understand or are hard maybe to live and practice, these are things that we are helped with in different areas of the Scriptures. And that's another reason why it's so important to become just really obsessed almost with becoming intimate with our Bible, with really knowing where things are located in the Bible, with becoming intimate with the positioning of certain teachings in the Bible. This is just so important because, again, we may find ourselves grasping at straws and trying to find some sort of complicated scientific or philosophical argument for a question that's answered right there in the Bible. Now, I realize that you're going to go through these situations where you talk to people and for whatever reason, you're wanting to give them evidence of a nature that does not rely on the Bible as a primary source document. And this kind of thing can happen whether you're a presuppositionalist or not. I mean, maybe you're going through the historical evidences for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. This kind of evidence can be used in whatever context you find yourself in methodologically. Okay, and if you disagree with that, well, I just think you're wrong. Anyway, so you can make use of these different kinds of arguments in whichever context. And so you might find yourself doing that. But again, there are things that are answered by the biblical text itself, and you can save a lot of steps by just making sure that you're dealing with the claims of the worldview that you are trying to advance. So let me just, try to give you some sort of a scenario. A lot of times people want to critique the Bible, but they don't want to critique the Bible, based on the kind of background information that would be true given a biblical worldview. Okay? So people say things like, well, people don't rise from the dead. Jesus did not rise from the dead because people don't rise from the dead. That is not a thing that happens. And of course, we're poised to agree with this person. People don't rise from the dead, right? But somehow they think they've made some great point, right? And so what do you start doing? Oh, is this where we start looking at science and we start talking about NDEs? Well, actually, these people have near-death experiences, and it shows that these people actually were, by all accounts, dead, and they came back to life, and they had, and so all these different things that we might want to dive into, or we dive into miracle stories from across the globe and all of this, when the question has a very biblical answer. The biblical answer is, we understand that people don't rise from the dead. That's what makes it miraculous. And the biblical claim is that God rose Jesus from the dead. So given a biblical worldview, it's not at all improbable or even implausible that Christ would rise from the dead. And since the historical evidence seems to bear out this claim, then it works. Okay? So just, understand this, that a lot of times the Bible answers these questions. And so becoming more biblically literate goes a long way towards sharing the gospel and really giving a confidence that the Scripture is true and reliable on all matters of faith and practice. I think of another practical one, the Apostle Paul anticipating what the Romans might say when he starts teaching about the superiority of grace and the proper role of the law as a schoolmaster, as a teacher. And so, he's answering these objections ahead of time. He says, wait a minute, if in fact we're saved by grace, does that mean that we could just run rampant in sin and live however we please? And what's his response to that? God forbid. No, and the ultimate tenor of his teaching there is, no, because you have been set free by grace, you now live a life according to obedience and obeying God's law. So that's what I mean, friends. Just think about, whenever you're dealing with objections, whenever you're having conversations with people, whenever you're sharing the gospel and things come up, I would just challenge you and encourage you to think, what would a biblical answer be to this question? Is it fine to talk about the science and the philosophy and the history and extra biblical sources and all this other stuff? Yeah, I'm an apologist, man. I love talking about those kind of things, but let's keep it in context. Let's get back to the Bible. Let's remember that God inspired and preserved His Word for us so that we could have it in all things that we do, in our evangelism especially. We can trust the Word. We can go back to the Word. We can look to the Word for answers to the questions that we have, and also to the questions that the skeptic has. They're going to have to work on biblical presuppositions if they want to appropriately critique the biblical worldview. Okay, that's just how it works. Even if, only for the sake of argument, you can't evaluate Christianity on the truth claims of atheism, or on the presuppositions, I should say, of atheism. that kind of thing doesn't work. And so one of the ways that you can help guard against this is by constantly thinking of ways to go back to the Bible to help you answer your questions. So hopefully that provides a little bit of a help for you in your witnessing and your apologetics endeavors. All right? God bless you. If you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts about what I just said on this particular episode, I would encourage you to go to stevestram.com/ask. I'm really excited. Hopefully, as folks listen to this episode, we should cross the 200 download mark already for this podcast, and I'm really thrilled with that. I think that I would love to see more, of course, but considering this podcast has virtually no promotion, I'm so thrilled that we are already to that point, and I hope it just grows and grows and grows and grows from there. And so thank you for joining me on this. If you want to like it, share this podcast with other people, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this podcast so that more people on that particular channel can find it. That is the one thing you could do that would help more than anything. You know, we accept monetary donations, but we don't really ask for them, except every now and then. And for the most part, we're just not asking for monetary donations on this podcast. Really what I want is just more reach. I want for more people to find it, more people to get involved and dig into the resources that we offer so that they can get help. All right. God bless you. Again, stevestram.com/ask if you want to ask a question or leave your comments. God bless you. See you next time.